Before I post my blockbuster video, which will be a few days in the making, to pre-validate what I will be exposing, the following video will shock your soul. They will pay for what they've done. There is no more effective weapon short of a .50 caliber Desert Eagle than the unvarnished truth. The following is reposted with permission of Will Kinesche. Please use the link below to subscribe to his channel. Thank you.
This year, the youngest child recovered was 13 years of age. When they hear the term child sex trafficking, most Americans think that it only happens in other countries or that foreign children are brought here to be sold in large cities. In fact, we have learned that most of the victims of child sex trafficking are American kids who are trafficked in small towns and large urban areas. If people are not aware of it, they're not looking for it. How prevalent is child sex trafficking? In 2012 alone, 1 out of 8 endangered runaways reported to the National Center were likely child sex trafficking victims. 1 out of 8. This number has tripled since we started comparing missing children to trafficked children. An often overlooked aspect of child sex trafficking is that it is also a problem of missing children. Many child sex trafficking victims are missing from their parents, legal guardians, or foster care placements. These are the most vulnerable of children. Traffickers know this. They actively target runaways and then lure them into the sex trade using psychological manipulation, illegal drugs, and violence. Foster children are easy targets for pimps. These children are the most susceptible to the manipulation and false promises that traffickers use to secure their trust and dependency. Of the children reported missing to NCMEC in 2012 who are likely child sex trafficking victims, 67% were in the care of social services or foster care when they ran. 67%.
The Will Kinesche Show, in search for truth and justice, with yours truly, Will Kinesche. And what you just heard was the CEO of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children giving out the statistics that you've been hearing on my shows. About 67% of sex trafficking victims come through the foster care system. Particular year, the youngest one they had was 13 years old. So I have some more video clips of him with some staggering information. I also have video clips of an actual sex trafficking victim that was in the foster care system for 18 years and was sex trafficked for 7 of those 18 years in multiple states. I have testimony from social service, child protective service, foster care, caseworker, and what her input is on the foster care system. I also have Tammy Stefano back giving her input on exactly what this ex-foster care caseworker had to say. And finally, I touch bases again on the Cash for Kids, because right after that, there is a congressman in this congressional hearing, which I focused most of my videos on, talking about the sex trafficking and recruiting in the group homes of the foster care system. So hang on, folks, because we got another good one for you.
Shout it out loud. Whoa. Everybody shout.
According to the National Foster Youth Institute, 60% of all child victims nationwide have a history in the child welfare system, many of them found during FBI raids of sex trafficking rings across the U.S. The Institute states flaws in the foster care system have led too many children into a life of exploitation and prostitution.
One example, the National Center received reports of a young girl who was 15. She had been reported missing 13 times before she was placed in foster care. Law enforcement got involved, and the pattern continued of her running away. We found through our reports that this child had several tattoos, many of them pronounced. Tattoos are a sign of branding by these pimps. They market these products, these young girls, these victims. We were able to develop leads through public access data that this girl was being trafficked on an online classified service. We sent that information to law enforcement. They set up a sting operation. They made a call to arrange a date with this young girl, and they were able to rescue her. This girl reported that for the last 2 years she had been victimized on average 5 times per night for that 2-year period. And our critical and runaway unit. These are specialized case management teams that handle cases of missing children who are also possible sex trafficking victims. NCMEC partners with the FBI and the Justice Department in the Innocent Lost National Initiative. Since 2003, NCMEC has served as a clearinghouse for information and provides analytical support to the 66 innocent lost task forces throughout the country. These task forces operate Operation Cross Country. This is a targeted, coordinated 3-day sweep of child sex trafficking venues. These operations have rescued more than 2,700 children who have been trafficked and arrested more than 1,300 pimps.
A youth who grew up in foster care for pretty much the first 18 years of my life. Throughout that time, from the ages of 10 to 17, I was a victim of sexual exploitation and trafficking here domestically in the United States, throughout the states of California, Nevada, Oregon, and of course your state, Washington. I've endured. The most consistent relationship that I ever had while in care was that of my pimp and his family. Exploiters to hide their involvement, which continues to perpetuate the foster youth population's vulnerability. So how do we accept and normalize being used as an object for financial gain? As we all know, there is money provided to caregivers by the agencies to provide and serve the youth. Often this money is used by caregivers for their personal use or the use of their families or biological children. And currently, from my knowledge, there is no system set up to guarantee that the money is actually being utilized for the child that's within the placement.
So if it's okay, if I can touch on the different protections that children have here within America. Mm-hmm. So they have law enforcement and they have child protective services. And those are the two entities that get involved when there are allegations of child abuse. Child protective services across the country does not have, they employ social workers. The social workers do not have the training, first of all, to investigate child abuse, because child abuse is a crime. And so we've just covered this in a way where parents were emailing me. I mean, there was postings saying, I knew it. I've been, my case has been going on for 6 years and I've been trying to tell them this is a crime. And you are the first person to finally bring somebody out to verify it. So Child Protective Services has been taking these cases, and actually they don't have any training to do so. Sexual abuse and physical abuse is a crime, and if I can just encourage your audience to call law enforcement if the allegations are physical or sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. They are trained to handle crimes.
I've been reflecting on my days as a former CPS caseworker. With a caseload of over 30 teenagers or more at a time, well above the recommended caseload of 12 to 15 per caseworker, caseworkers are the people charged with protecting some of our most vulnerable children and should be provided a manageable caseload that ensures appropriate supervision that does not leave children at risk for further abuse and neglect and promotes a child's ability to thrive both in and out of the child welfare system. I also regret that the training I received as a caseworker had not provided me the skills and supports needed to understand the impact of trauma on healthy child development and identify behaviors and characteristics that increase the likelihood that children in foster care will be victims of exploitation and trafficking. For many state child welfare agencies, training on these topics is not part of the initial basic skills development provided to newly hired caseworkers. Additionally, basic training on human trafficking, reporting laws, and information on appropriate resources should be provided to all professionals who are likely to come into contact with possible minor victims who may be on runaway.
Back to the issue of the court and really the power of the judge in the court who sits on the bench, right, or the bank. Now, we've heard this Kids for Cash case,
Yes.
right? Describe a little bit of what that entailed, because obviously there's a lot of corruption that's going on in this one case that's come out, let alone obviously a much bigger system that might be permitting this. But explain what happened with that Kids for Cash.
Well,
scenario.
Kids for Cash was out of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has so much corruption that has been uncovered. And perhaps because one situation, such as Kids for Cash, got exploited, then everything got exploited. Pennsylvania is one of those little hidden places where a lot can go on. So that particular judge was sending these children, deeming them to have behavioral defiant issues, and sending them to a juvenile delinquent facility. This juvenile delinquent facility that he would send them to, lo and behold, he was part owner of. So, Kids for Cash.
Kind of a conflict of interest there.
I would say so.
In this case, it was actually a perfect marriage of interests.
Absolutely, and lots of money. And I feel very confident to say that the money that they have been able to find and deem him as having collected couldn't begin to touch on the money that has actually gone through his hands. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of payoffs that go on.
The Department of Justice reports that between 2008 and 2010, 83% of sex trafficking victims found within the United States were U.S. citizens, and the average age of a girl's entry into prostitution or sex trafficking is 12 to 14 years old. That's the 7th grade. Sadly, the foster care system is ripe with opportunities for predators to exploit these young girls. Recently, the Chicago Tribune reported how group facilities are a breeding ground for the recruitment of children into sex trafficking, saying, quote, "Because many girls in foster care feel starved for a sense of family, experts say it is not uncommon for pimps to target group homes and groom girls for prostitution by giving them attention and gifts. They often let the girls think they're dating, and they even used one foster child to recruit others."
So if it's okay, if I can touch on the different protections that children have here within America. Mm-hmm. So they have law enforcement and they have child protective services. And those are the two entities that get involved when there are allegations of child abuse. Child protective services across the country does not have, they employ social workers. The social workers do not have the training, first of all, to investigate child abuse, because child abuse is a crime. And so we've just covered this in a way where parents were emailing me. I mean, there was postings saying, "I knew it. I've been, my case has been going on for 6 years, and I've been trying to tell them this is a crime. And you are the first person to finally bring somebody out to verify it." So Child Protective Services has been taking these cases, and actually they don't have any training to do so. Sexual abuse and physical abuse is a crime. And if I can just encourage your audience to call law enforcement if the allegations are physical or sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. They are trained to handle crimes.
Thank you for taking your valuable time to watch my channel. If you would like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification button after you hit the subscription. So therefore, when I put more shows out, you'll get notifications. And if you would support my channel either at Patreon or at my GoFundMe page. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support and the comments that you've been leaving below. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. Before I get into the videos, being the fact that my other half and I, we kept up with 6 kids, our youngest daughter had some major medical issues and was missing school. My other half was sending in the doctor's notes excusing her from missing class. Now, the social service, CPS, foster care worker on her case brings her in to her office, takes her out of class, and starts to grill her and question her on truancy issue, which is a criminal charge on a juvenile. Now, at this point in time, just so you'll know, a law enforcement officer does not have the authority to question a juvenile without the presence or permission of the parent and or a lawyer. However, this particular social service individual through my county here in Hanover County, Virginia, took upon herself and saw fit to question my child without the presence of one of us or a lawyer, and eventually put a truancy against her, took her to court, and because of the fact that she had missed classes and there was one or two of day excuses that they could not find that was sent in, the judge put her in juvenile detention. So I didn't go to court that day. My other half calls me up crying, says they just took her to JV. They hooked her up, put handcuffs on her, shackles, orange suit, and headed her down to Williamsburg, Virginia, which is Merrimack, the juvenile detention facility in this area of Virginia. I pissed off. I made some phone calls, and the lady at the juvenile detention facility, when we got down there in Merrimack, says, I don't know who you are and I don't know who you know, but her dismissal papers got here before she even arrived. And I said, yeah, and there's going to be some people that's going to answer for this. And not only did I get so pissed off that I went and got my college credentials, because I are educated. Okay, I'm just shy of 3 college degrees, even though if it wasn't for spell check, you would think that I had never made it past the 3rd grade. And I went into the school, county school, Hanover County School, into the social system. I gave them my credentials and I said, as of today, my child is no longer in the public schools here in this county. I will homeschool her from home, and y'all can take it and y'all can stick it up your asses, because I was pissed. And it's never happened again. And social services started giving me a call again, and I told them, don't call no more. If you want to talk to me or my child, you go get a warrant. Other than that, leave my child the hell alone. And that's all I'm going to say about this issue for now. But I'm just letting you know, these social service people, child protective service, foster care people think that they are above the law and can do anything they want when they want and violate the 5th Amendment rights of a child. And this should not be allowed to happen in our country. So once again, on these videos, what you heard was the CEO, John Ryan, from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, putting out the statistic that 67% of sex trafficking victims in the United States come from the foster care system. And the youngest girl that particular year they had found was 13 years old. He further goes on to say that over a period of time, they had rescued 2,700 sex trafficking victims. They were all, majority of them came from the foster care system. Story, and that one story was about a 15-year-old they had rescued after they had set up a sting operation where she had been forced to have sex 5 times a day for a period of 2 years. And she's talking about foster care system, and the foster care social service workers are not qualified to investigate crimes. Sex trafficking, child rape is a crime, and they are not qualified to investigate these crimes. The police are. I'm ex-law enforcement. It took me several years to become a good investigator, to know the questions asked, to be able to distinguish whether someone was lying to you or not and telling you the truth. And her comments are backed up by an actual foster care social service CPS caseworker, who was talking about having overloaded cases and the caseworkers not getting the proper training and care to investigate and to follow through with the issues that we have through the foster care system. And then there was just one story where they had a young lady there. They call her T. Her name was Ortez. She was in the foster care system for 18 years. 7 of those 18 years, from the time she was 10 to 17 years old, she was pimped out and prostituted by her foster care family. And the best relationship that she had over an 18-year period in the foster care system was with her pimp, and if you didn't catch it, with her pimp and his family. So not only was she being pimped out by this approved foster care family and individual, the entire family knew that they were pimping her out. Okay, this is just one case, one issue, one story of thousands of stories through the foster care system. Finally, I brought back the Cash for Kids about the corrupt judges, which we move on to Congressman Polson from Minnesota, and he talks about the average age being 12 to 14 years old, being trafficked through the foster care system and in the United States. And he also mentions, and I'm going to elaborate on this, about the sex trafficking and the sexual abuse that takes place in our group homes through the foster care system. So a few years back, the Bureau of Justice Statistics did a study of 195 juvenile confinement facilities. Needless to say, these juvenile confinement facilities is through the foster care system. The one thing I didn't like about the report was it tried to slide that around, not associating these juvenile facilities with the foster care system, but that's basically what it is. When you have a juvenile that is taken out of your home and put into a juvenile detention facility referred to as juvie, the foster care system, the CPS, social services, has taken custody of that child and put them into a facility. So they are responsible for the well-being of the children. So they checked out over 9,000 of these youth that had been adjudicated out of the system, and this is what they had to say: that they were either raped in the facilities themselves by other quote-unquote juvenile inmates, or by staff, and or they were also sex trafficked out of the facility. While they were in the facility, they were being taken out and sex trafficked by the staff and others involved into the facility itself through the foster care system. That if you have children going into a juvenile foster care youth facility, number one, you need to take note to make sure that they are being protected and there's no type of rape, sexual misconduct, or sex trafficking. Make note that those facilities were the worst. They were on the top list of all this sex trafficking and sexual inappropriation in the actual facilities, and a lot of it was done by the guards and the facility staff. As a matter of fact, one report I read, they actually were raping kids. The staff were in the day room when everybody was there looking. Then these reports went down and checked to see exactly the date, the time, and locations of these sexual assaults and when they happened. So it was a very thorough report. I'll put the link down into the descriptions of the video here. So this was part 3 of foster care CPS foster care system. The next one I decided I'm going to do strictly on the state judges, strictly on the state senators of 3 states that have been murdered because of their criticism of the foster care system here in the United States. So stay tuned, because we're still in episode 2 of the Pizzagate, and there was a lot more coming. So that's all we have for the day. I want to thank you so much for taking your time to watch my show. If you would, go down to my Patreon or my GoFundMe page and support my channel. Like, share, and leave your comments down in the bottom. See what I can do to improve my show and bring you content that you're interested in. Hit that little notification button when you subscribe so you'll get more of my shows in the future. This has been In the Search for Truth and Justice with yours truly, Will Kinesche, on The Will Kinesche Show.
So you can feel the sound. Let everybody know what time it is. So stand on up and we can get to this. Everybody shout.
Please subscribe to our backup channels: Net4Truth USA 2 Patriot channel, BitChute.com/net4Truth USA, and drop.space/ at Net4Truth USA. We fly so close to the target, we are on our 5th fighter jet. We will be relentless and persistent until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/net4truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.